We're going to work on the face now. We've got our facial features traced in with the gray graphite. The first thing we want to do is do some shading before we put in the detail of our features. And we're going to float some black above the cheeks and around the eyes and under the mouth. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch flat brush. I'm going to add some glazing medium to that first, and we're going to side load with black. You don't want the black real heavy, so the glazing medium will help control that and make it a little more transparent. So you can't see my palette since I'm zoomed in so close, but I'm side loading my brush with some black, and I'm going to first come up here and float right above this line of the cheek that we traced in. So you can see it's a real soft, kind of transparent black float. And we're going to come around that eye just a little bit. Just soften it off to the edge of the face. And then you can come around the opposite cheek. I'm going to start on the left side and brush across over to where the eye is traced, and come around that eye a little bit with the float. And take the clean end of my brush and just soften the end of that so that it fades off into nothing. And kind of watch how wide your cheeks are so they both look about even. Then we're going to come down here under the mouth and float a little bit up into those little corner points. So you can see both sides. So you get a little bit of you can see the mouth curved in there now, and you can see the top of the cheeks shaded. So we're going to clean out our brush. And while that's drying, you can go ahead and use a small liner brush or a stylus or whatever you like to make dots with. These are fairly small dots, so I'm going to use the tip of my 3/0 liner. And I'm going to go in here and just paint his eyes in solid black. And you want them to be about even in size. Okay, then we're going to paint the nose in. And we're using a carrot style nose, so what we're going to do is mix. I'm going to move the heart over for a second, and we're going to mix an orange for his nose, for the base color. And to mix the orange, I want you to use a little bit of our red mix that we had started with. So I'm just putting that on some on the end of my liner, and I'm going to brush that here on the palette. And then we're going to pick up a little bit of Hansa yellow and mix that in. You probably need about half and half of these, so 1 part of the red to 1 part Hansa yellow. So I need to keep picking up a little more. If you can see, it's a pretty bright orange color. So just keep adding yellow to it until you get an orange color that you like. Then I'm going to set that aside. We're going to go back to our snowman, and we're just going to take the liner brush and base his nose in with the orange. And I want you to come out and be sure you come out onto the graphite line so that you don't see those after the nose is painted in. And you can trail his little nose out as far as you like. Okay, so now you can see we've got the majority of his features painted in. So we're going to stop and let those dry before we go to the next step. Now that the snowman's nose and the shading we've done on his cheeks and mouth are done, I want to go back and add a little bit of highlighting to re-emphasize the cheeks and the mouth. And we're going to do that with titanium white, which was what we did the highlight stippling on the snowman with. I'm going to use, again, a 1/4 inch flat brush. I'm going to put some glazing medium in that and side load it with titanium white on my palette. And then I'm going to come up here and float a little stronger highlight at the top of his cheeks on each side. And then flip the brush over and highlight the top of his mouth. Come back on the other side of his nose and add the titanium white on that side also. Put a little more paint in my brush and do this little corner of his mouth. So you can going to shade the carrot nose. To make a shading color for that, we're going to do one that was similar to the one we used for the hat, the red part of the hat and mittens. So we're going to use our angle, 1/4 inch angle, with some glazing medium added to it, and then we're going to pick up some of the red mix that we used previously, blend that on our palette, and then pick up a touch of the raw umber, and we're going to blend that into the same spot on the palette. So we're getting kind of a dark burnt, like a dark cherry red. And I want to shade along the bottom edge of this nose. So we're going to start here at the top, and you're just going to pull along the bottom out to the tip. And smooth that out. So we're going to stop and let that dry. As you can see, when you're doing these little features and doing floated layers, you have a lot of downtime waiting for layers to dry. But now our nose is dry, and we're going to add a highlight on top with the Hansa Yellow. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch flat brush loaded with glazing medium, and then touch it into the Hansa Yellow and blend it on my palette so that we have a bit loaded for a side load or a floated color. Those terms are kind of interchangeable. If you hear float or side load, they both mean the same thing. So we've got that worked in our brush, and I'm going to float this top edge so the paint is towards the top of the nose, and come around the top a little bit, and then flip it over and work it down on this top side towards the tip. And that brightens your nose a little bit. While we're doing that, let's go ahead and add some more highlight to the bird with the same color, the Hansa Yellow. Hansa Yellow is a semi-transparent color, so it's a good color to glaze highlights or over other colors. So we've still got it loaded in our brush, and let's add a little highlight here to the top of the bird's head, the back of the wing, just kind of pulling down to the bottom and letting that fade off. And we can add a little bit to the the tail feathers. And we're using this on the bird because we're going to be basing the stars on the snowman with this hand yellow in a little bit, and we want to repeat this yellow color in other spots on the design. Now we can also use it to highlight the hat and mittens a little bit more. So I'm going to use just a clean flat brush, and we're going to do our glazing technique where we lay some glazing medium down. You can also use extender. We used the extender earlier. And then side load your brush with the Hansa yellow. And put that over the center. So I've got the paint edge of my brush facing towards the middle, and then I'm going to flip it over and face it in the opposite direction and just soften those where those two meet. And just work out on either side. And you can use one of your dome blenders if you need to tap that to soften the colors a little bit if they need it. But you can see where we're bringing the nose color into the bird and the snowman's hat. Now we're going to do that same thing on the mittens. So we're going to, and you have to work quickly because you don't want your glazing medium to dry on you. Now if you used extender, you have a little bit more time. So I'm side loading my brush with the yellow, and we're going to start in the middle here with the paint towards the left side of the heart, and then flip it over and our paint's in the opposite direction. We're going to soften those colors together. And then take your dome blender or stippling brush and soften that out a little bit more. And again, repeat this on the second cuff. First, some glazing medium, and then float the yellow in the middle. Take the dome blender and just tap that to soften it out. Okay, we're going to stop and let these layers dry. Next, we're going to blush the snowman's cheeks on either side, and we want a coral color to blush the cheeks with. So we're going to mix some of our red mix and some white. But first, we're going to give us a little time to work those cheeks, we're going to add some extender to those areas. The extender will slow down the drying time of the paint and give us a little time to work those cheeks in. So I'm taking a small, clean, flat brush, filling in that area on either side of the face with a little extender. Again, you don't want this to be so heavy that it puddles. You just want a slight sheen to your surface. If you get too much, you can just blot it with a paper towel or blot it with your finger a little bit and wipe it off on your paper towel. I don't know if you can Trying to angle this so you can see. I don't think we're going to be able to see how much is on there, but it's just, you can see that there's something on there. It's just a slight glossy look, but it's not puddled. Now to add the paint, we're going to mix the red mix that we started with. I'm just picking up some on my 1/4 inch flat. Then we're going to lay it down here on the palette. And then we're going to pick up a little bit of white on that same brush. You just want a soft corally pink color. Now I'm not going to use the 1/4 inch brush to put that paint on my cheeks. I'm going to go to the Dome blender, and because we just want to soften that on there real fast. So I'm just picking up a little bit on my Dome blender and working that into the brush so you can see it on the palette next to that. And then we're going to go to our snowman's face and just pat that in, and you can work in kind of a circular motion. You want to wipe your brush on a towel, paper towel, and then soften that edge so it softens out to nothing. I'm also using my finger to pat that in there. And then we're going to pick up a little bit more of the paint and do the opposite side. I'm just going in swirling the brush in a circular motion on a little bit more paint. And just soften that out to nothing. So you can see we have some pink cheeks. The next thing we're going to do on detail for the snowman is to highlight his eyes and highlight the nose some little more detail. And I'm using a fine liner. I picked up my 3/0 liner, and I'm going to take a little bit of the white paint on the tip of it, and I want to do a very tiny little dot in the snowman's eyes to the upper right side of each eye. I'm going to repeat that in both eyes. And you can do a smaller dot underneath that. It's just a hair speck. And then I'm going to take a little bit more white on the brush, and I'm going to run a little squiggly line. You can add a little bit of water to your paint to make it flow a little smoother. But I'm just doing a squiggly line down the top side of his nose out to the end. And a little more. So you really do need to add a little bit of water to that paint so it flows off your brush kind of like ink. So we're just bringing that out to the tip. The last thing I would do to the snowman's face for the moment is some little highlights to the cheeks. And for snowmen, I like to do little, what I call snowflake highlights. And I'm using the liner brush, and I'm going to pull an X over the cheek to center it, and then draw a line through the middle. And we're going to do that on both sides. An X, and then a line through the middle. A snowflake has 6 sides, so the X and one line through the middle gives you a 6-sided snowflake. And then I'm going to add a dot to the center I'm using the tip of my liner brush, and then dot the tip of each of the lines. And so this just adds a sparkle to his face. You can actually add a couple, like a little dot towards the middle inside, in between each of the lines to give some more detail. Just keep them smaller. So, there's our snowman's face. I'm going to a little bit more white to that highlight down his nose. So we'll stop on the face at this point, and I want you to go on and base the stars on his body with the Hansa yellow. So you can use a small flat or a small angle, and we're just loading the brush with Hansa yellow, and we're going to just base those stars in, just like a color book base coating. And the yellow isn't necessarily going to cover your graphite lines, but don't worry about that. We're going to add some outlining to this when we're finished. That will help cover any graphite lines that still are showing up. Just come out onto the lines to soften them down. So go ahead and base all 3 stars with the Hansa yellow, and then we'll come back after that.